Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And alhamdulillah. Wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wa mursaleen. Sayyidina wa habibina al Mustafa Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa salam. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawmiddin wa ba'd. Okay, so we'd like to welcome you all to week 16 in chronological order. Of this covering the book Safinatun Naja, the ship of salvation, which is covering us a primer in Shafi'i fiqh and knowing all of the rules and issues according to Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah. So how is everyone? Health, wealth, knowledge of self?
Alhamdulillah, you.
Okay, no complaints. Okay, so we had a homework assignment, I believe. I know it's been 2 weeks, but anybody remember what the assignment was?
I don't think many of us memorized it though.
Okay. Did anybody memorize the dua that you say after the adhan?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Anybody have it already?
I do have it.
Oh,
You
you
don't
have it?
have it.
No, memorize. To have it means to have it memorized.
No,
Not
sir.
Okay,
not all of it.
yeah,
No,
we all,
I get I get tongue twisted at the last couple of when you get to the wild fall something. I forget that part. I kind of memorized the first couple of parts, but no, I'm still working on it.
okay. Inshallah, we'll extend it another week.
Um, I was gonna say that I had it.
Okay.
Well, I had it before you mentioned it. Before
Oh,
you first mentioned it.
okay, so we'll give another week for everybody to get it, inshallah. And so we left off on the conditions, the 17 conditions of the salat, inshallah. Uh, Everybody know those, or do we need to go over them again?
I think we should be good. I mean, I'm okay.
Okay. Okay. You the official spokesperson?
I have it as well.
All right. Okay. So Tayyip, how about you, brother Rob? You need a refresher, or you?
I'm good, Imam.
Okay. All right. So inshallah, we're going to continue in the book, and today we're going to cover some of the sunnahs of the prayer. All right, and just read through this section, inshallah. All right, and that's on page. And now, as we, I don't know if you remember the last time we met, but this section is not part of the original book. This is not part of the original book, but the translator added this in. But it's still something good to know, inshallah. That this stuff, many of you already know already, but we just go it because it's in the book that we have. Okay, let me share this screen. Okay, can everybody see that? Should I make it bigger or?
You can
I
see
can
it.
see it. Yes, I can see it as well.
Okay. Anybody want to volunteer reading? So those who have this
I'll read
copy,
it.
so those who have this PDF copy of Safinatun Naja, when you see this section that says note, that's not part of the book. This is something that the translator added. Okay, just to give a little further clarity. All right, because remember, you all remember, this is like the second book in Shafi'i fiqh, and so it's a curriculum. So as they advance as you get in other books, then they're assuming that you already mastered the first book, right? Okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Somebody has
Bismillah. Huh?
somebody has some noise in the background. Okay, that sounds good now. Go ahead.
Bismillah. Note, description of the Salah. Sunnah before commencing the Salah. To stand for the Salah after completion of the Iqamah, to be in the first row, to make the first row straight, especially for the Imam when he should enjoin upon the Jama'ah to do so and to fill up the first row, then the second, and so on.
Okay. So here, of course, it's this is what if you were establishing a salat in Jama'ah. And so when he says after the completion of the Iqamah, there are two ways. Either you wait till the Iqamah is completed all the way, or when the Iqamah says Qad Qamah to Salat, then you stand at that time. And I think in the other school, maybe the Hanafi school, I'm not sure, that they stand as soon as the Iqamah starts. So when the Imam says Iqamah to Salat, and they say Allahu Akbar, they start lining up. I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I've seen Hanafis do it, right? And so to be in the first,
I'm sorry. You said for Shafi'i, as soon as the Iqamah is called, that's when we stand, correct? In
at
the
no
right
at the
soon
no at the completion of the Iqamah,
at
or
the completion.
when you get to the part called the Qamah to Salat, which means the Salat has been established. At that point,
Okay.
you stand up, or you wait till it's all the way completed, and then you stand. Now, either one of those are acceptable. To be in the
I
first
got
row.
one more question too
Go ahead.
about that. So I know he was saying so I remember reading a hadith that's I think it was a hadith that I was reading that about the blessings of it being in the front row when you go to the masjid for the prayer the Juma. However, I was also reading something I can't remember where I read it at, but they said that women shouldn't be in the first row since we're not supposed to be seen, things like that. We shouldn't it's not it's a reward for the men to be sitting in the front row, so they should race, but it's not a reward for the woman. The woman should try to be as far back as possible for her reward. Is that correct? Do you know something about that?
Yeah, not saying it's not. It's a reward for it. It's just saying that the best rows for the women are the back rows, and the worst are for the front. And so that's if they're basically standing behind the men, because during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, um, they prayed like right behind each other, right? And so because the reason why it's the worst row, because if you're behind the men, it can be a distraction, you know. But it doesn't mean you don't get a reward for it. You get a reward for every good deed, inshallah.
Okay.
All right, so this would apply if women and men are in the Jama'ah. But of course, if it was all women, then the first row, then it would apply the same as the men, that the first row would be the best one. All right. So it's just a distinction there if they praying like in Jumu'ah or some congregational prayer. All right. To be in the first row, to make the row straight, especially for the imam when he should join upon the Jama'at to do so. So the imam leading the salat, should tell people to straighten the rows, shoulder to shoulder, and you have to hear foot to foot, and people, jamming their ankles together. This is really, this is what's called like takhsis, emphasis. It doesn't mean literal, because that can cause a problem. And some masters you go to, the people are, I've seen them get down and put people's heels together, because how would that apply if there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he said, and one narration is in Sahih Muslim, he said unukin wa unukin, like to pray neck to neck. Is it possible to pray neck to neck?
No.
Mhm.
So when he said put the foot to foot, it meant for emphasis. But the Prophet ﷺ himself used to straighten out the shoulders and tell people to put their chest and not be slumping over. That's what he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did. And there, I believe that the narration about the feet is not really from it's not from the Prophet ﷺ or any of the Sahaba. I think it was one of the Tabi'een that they understood when they straightened the rules, that, you put the feet together and they would place emphasis on it, right? So the first row, the second row, and then if you line up behind the Imam, you line up and make the lines even. So, of course, we also know another hadith that, is preferable to line up on the right. But if you say if you don't have a full row, you should start in the center, like where the muezzin. Say if it's 3 people in the jama'ah, not including imam. So there should be like 1 on each side to make the line even, and not like 2 on the right side. All right, and so you fill the line up and make it even. The first one is complete, and the second one, then like that. So how is it that when people who like say if you come in and then someone is praying by themselves and they pull somebody off the first line, have you all ever seen that before?
No, I
Said it.
haven't.
You talking about when you in the middle of the prayer already and they pray by themselves?
Yes, say as a prayer, you come in, the first line is filled up, and then another person comes in and they are in the row by themselves in the back, right? And they pull a person off the front row to make so that they're not praying by themselves. And it's based on how deep that you shouldn't pray by yourself in the rank. But then there's also one that says if there's any rows that have to be incomplete, let it be the last row. So I have yet to find a proof for when people do pull somebody off the first line, because if the first lines are to be complete in order, then if you pull somebody off the front line, then the row becomes incomplete. And so you can't make a row incomplete after it becomes complete. So I really haven't paid attention to it until I saw it recently, or when I see it, And maybe for when a person, say if it's the imam and it's one person praying beside him, right? And then someone else comes in and then they pull that person back so they can pray together. In that instance, yeah, that would be good, right? But if it's just like you got rows of people, and if you on the last row by yourself, then you on the last row by yourself. So I haven't read anything where, not at least in the Shafi'i school, where you can just break the row. So they should be filled up going through. All right, the next section.
Commencing the salah. One starts to make the takbirat al-ihram with the intention in the heart. It is mustahab to recite the dua iftihah after the takbirat al-ihram. After the dua iftihah, it is mustahab to recite the ta'awadhus. Ta'awadhus is mustahab in
Ta'awud.
ta'awudh. Ta'awudh is mustahab in every rak'ah and more emphasized in the first rak'ah. Then a person recites Surah al-Fatiha in every rank, and the Basmalah is one of its verses. One says Ameen at the end of the al-Fatiha when following an imam, and one says Ameen when he does, and then a second time when he completes his own recital of the al-Fatiha. If one is
Let's stop there
in
for a second. Let's stop
okay.
for a second. So when you start, you make the takbiratul ihram or takbir at-tahrim with the intention in your heart at that time. So this is also one of the shurut of the salat, is that you have to have intention. And at the time that you start to begin the salat, you make the intention right there when you do the takbir. And then it says the dua iftitah, right? This the opening dua. And so many of you probably learned it, and I learned it as well. when you say Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika wa tabaraka smuka wa ta'ala jaduka wa la ilaha gairuk. Do all you know that one?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody who doesn't know it?
No, I don't know that one.
Okay. There's another one you know?
No.
Okay. All right. So this is mustahab, that is not necessarily a part of the salat, but it's recommended to do it. And in the Shafi'i school, there's actually another one. And I actually have to memorize it myself because I've been so used to the one we just said is in the Hanafi school. I think the Malikis, I don't think they do it in their salah. So it's not, and so this is the important of knowing all of the rulings of the salah, especially in your school. So when you hear these little different things, you know that where they come from, right? And so in the Shafi school, so if you like say if you were behind somebody in a prayer and they say Allahu Akbar, right? And then they just start reciting Al-Fatiha. Well, you will know right then and there it's not Shafi. And this is one thing learning about the different schools, that none of this stuff is wrong. It's just variations, you know. It's just different variations but what we're supposed to know, what is fard, what is sunnah, what is mustahab is important. And you see it in different schools. It just show you the richness and the vastness of knowledge, right? So if you see somebody, for instance, like a Maliki will pray and they'll do the takbir and then they go right to the Fatiha. And they might not even do the ta'awud, which is to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, all right? But all of these schools have their principles of how you approach it, right? So in the Shafi school, you say, I started memorizing this dua because all these years I didn't never memorize it. It's wajjahtu wajhi fatiri samawati wal ard. وما أنا من المشركين إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين وبذلك أمرت وأنا من المسلمين. That's the dua iftitah, when you open up after the takbir. That's the dua you say in the Shafi school. But if you still say Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika, that's also good. So these things are mustahab. They don't invalidate your salat any one way or the other. So if you miss it or if you don't do it, it's no harm, right? And then after that, you recite out. Somebody had a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. I don't know. This may be not so smart. Okay, so when we start our salah, the tabarat al-ihram,
Takbir.
that's the Allah,
Takbirat al-ihram.
takbarat al-ihram, that's the Allahu Akbar. We do that's our when we say Allahu Akbar, and some people still put their hands to the side, and some people cross them. It just depends on your madhab, right?
Right.
But now what is that? Allahu Akbar.
All right, let's cover that real quick.
So then when you the Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu alla ilaha illa anta, what is that called the iftifar?
No, the iftitah is Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika wa tabaraka smuka wa ta'ala jaduka wa la ilaha ghayruka.
Okay.
All right, and there may be other variations on other schools, and like in the Shafi school is the one I just mentioned prior. So those are mustahab. So with the takbir, you will start the Shafi school, and I think we covered this already. Your hands are facing out, and the top of your fingers are going to be at your earlobes, and your thumbs is like that, and you bring them like even. And then while the takbir is, and he's going to cover the conditions of the takbir, but it's basically Allahu Akbar. You're extending the takbir. Allahu Akbar. All right. And then you put your hands under your chest. So on your stomach, in between your navel and your chest. All right. And then you will say the dua, and then you follow it with A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. And then after that, you recite Al-Fatiha. And so Al-Fatiha in the Shafi'i school, the Basmala is, or to say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, is considered one of the ayats. And you recite it out loud. All right. You recite it out loud. And in the other schools, I believe they recite it. So there's different views about whether you recite it out loud or silent. But in the Shafi'i school, you recite it out loud. And other schools, they say the Bismillah as well. But I think they just, the difference about what is allowed or silent. All right. And then after you recite Al-Fatiha, and Al-Fatiha, of course, is understood that you're reciting it. And we learned in Risalat Jamia with the Tashdidat. You know what the Tashdidat is?
No. Can you put the word? Can you spell that for me?
Okay. So it's reciting the Fatiha. I'm going to put this in the chat box. It's the Tashdidat. So there should be two D's. That. And that's a long A at the end. Tashdidat. Or the points of Shadda.
Thank you.
And so what does it mean by the points of Shadda? Anybody? It's kind of in that word. The points of Shadda.
Was Shadda, is that have to Shadda, like that has come from Shahada, like same thing as Shahada, right? Does it
No,
have something to do
Shahada
with
means witness. Shadda means like to strengthen something. Like the word Shadid. Shadda is from that
oh,
word.
like the martyr, same thing from the martyr, Shadid? Is that it? Is
No,
that the
no,
same one?
no.
Or am I mixing it up?
You're mixing it up. You drinking something this morning? What's going on? No, I'm just joking.
I'm
Do you
tired, Ebam, though. I've been up
No,
all night,
no, take
really.
it easy. No, the
I'm tired. My brain is cloudy.
okay, don't worry. Shahada or the Shahid comes from the word Shahada. That's the witness or the martyr, right? But Shadda means like to strengthen something, right? And the word Shadid, one who is strong or powerful, right? But here, Shadda means the emphasis on the pronunciation of Al-Fatiha and reciting it correctly. So, Bismillahi. So there is 14 points in the Fatiha, Al-Fatiha, where you have to make sure you get the emphasis on the Shadda. Bismillahi ar-Rahmani ar-Rahim.
Oh, Shadda. Okay.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmani ar-Rahim. All the places where the Shadda is, make sure that you're pronouncing them correctly. Like, you might hear people say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, right? Because Al-Fatiha, as we know, is one of the conditions of your salat being valid, and not reciting it properly invalidates your prayer. And so what that also indicates that you have an obligation to know how to recite it properly. Because Al-Fatiha is easy. It is the Kitab. And even though we might not know Arabic, we still don't have no excuse to not learn how to recite Al-Fatiha correctly. So that's what's
So
mean.
basically, it's tajweed. You're making
Yeah,
sure it's the tajweed of Fatiha in a sense, right? It's
yeah.
basically.
It's the Shadda is not necessarily part of Tajweed, because then there's other rules for Tajweed. But just knowing
Well, no,
that
I mean the Tasha Shadat. Is that, can we look? Can I mean, because I know that now what you explaining. I don't know. Like I said, my brain was cloudy. I'm waking up now. I just had some sugar. But what I'm saying,
maybe
the
maybe it
Shadda is
was
the double letter.
yeah
So when we learn it.
maybe it was better that you didn't have sugar. Maybe it was
No, but I'm saying like the shadda, the double letter. So
yes, double
we have,
letters.
because
Yes,
all the letters have a right. So you have to pronounce the letters, right? Is that what you're
yes,
basically
yeah.
saying?
That's
So
what.
each letter, so Bismillah has the two L's, so you have to make sure you pronounce both of those L's. I would
Yes,
just trying to make sure I explain it so in case other people don't understand the terminology too, and I can yeah.
yes.
Okay.
So tashdid, that is the plural of tashdid, which means to say. It means to. It's the act of saying the double letters, and tashdid, that is plural. So make sure you say all of them. Okay, maybe I didn't explain that right, but okay, but you got it though. All right. And so the ta'awud is to say, A'udhu billahi min shaitan rajim. Then after you recite al-Fatiha, and so in al-Fatiha, if you're praying behind the imam in the Shafi'i school, you also say it along with the imam, right? So have you ever noticed sometimes the people in the Jamaat, the imam is leading the salat, and people might be silent, and you might not looking at them, but you get a feel like sometimes if you standing next to somebody, even you concentrating on your prayer, you could get a feel when like somebody's fidgeting around or moving their lips, or you know what I'm saying? And so someone might be reciting al-Fatiha with the imam. And so listening to the imam recite al-Fatiha and reciting along with them, both of these are legit. But in the Shafi'i school, a person must recite it for themselves because it is an individual obligation, right? In other schools, the view is that the imam leading the prayer takes all of the off the person who is following. So if he's reciting al-Fatiha, then that is sufficient for the one who is praying behind. But in the Shafi'i school, no, you have to say it for yourself. And so you see all these little subtleties, which it still has harmony, but it's just different approaches. You follow what I'm saying? So there is no one single particular way that the salat is going to be the most perfect salat, according to just everybody doing it the same way. That has never been the case in Islam, right? And so in the Shafi'i school, a person will recite al-Fatiha, and then even in the case where an imam finished the al-Fatiha before the person does, then they will say Ameen when he does, and then the second time when he completes his own recital of al-Fatiha. All right. So say you're praying behind somebody and the imam might be going faster to al-Fatiha and you taking your time. But when he says Ameen, you say Ameen, and then you finish yours, and then you say Ameen. If you're in the congregation, then you would say that Ameen silent, right? Is that clear? Now another thing to, like you might learn this something else in a different school. None of them are invalid. It is important to know, and it's actually beneficial to know. But of course, you should just follow your own school. Like we mentioned a couple weeks ago, if you go to Yale, Harvard, or Columbia, or Princeton, you're following the curriculum that they laid down. You don't go be like, okay, I don't like what they're doing at Yale, so I'm gonna go do what they do at Harvard. You know what I'm saying? You follow the curriculum that's there. So, okay. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then also another intricacy in the Shafi'i school, that when the imam recites al-Fatiha, there's usually a little pause after he finishes before he goes to the surah, and that pause right there is to give someone time to finish their al-Fatiha. And so that connects with how important al-Fatiha is for the individual to recite it, that the imam is leading the salat, he should give them time to recite it, right? Because, if you ever been, and I'm pretty sure it's, well, mostly brothers, and I don't know how often it happens with sisters, that, you praying behind someone, and then, you on Ar-Rahman Rahim, and then they saying Allahu Akbar. And, the takbir starts the salat, you can't say nothing, because, you'd be wanting to say, man, how you recite that Fatiha that fast, right? He couldn't have said it right. You know what I mean? But then that's distracting you from your salat. So this is one of the things, to give you a way out. So if someone finished their Fatiha fast, right, then you say Ameen when they finish, right? And then you finish yours up. And because in Risalatul Jamia, we learned that how many units can you be behind before your prayer is invalid? Like, say if what I'm saying is, if the imam goes into ruku, can you still remain standing for a little bit, or do you have to go into ruku when he does?
I think you could remain standing for just a little bit, not too far, right?
Yeah, not too
Behind.
far. So you can't be two movements behind, more than two movements, right? You can't be more than two movements behind. In the Shafi'i school, that would invalidate your salat, But I think in other schools, when the imam moves, you also move. And all of these have proofs for it. So for instance, how this works out is, say if you the imam recited al-Fatiha, right? And then say you in a silent salat, you didn't finish yours, and you Shafi'i, and you need to finish your Fatiha. You finish your Fatiha while he went down in ruku. Then you just have to catch up, but you can't fall behind more than two uh, ritualistic movements. All right. So if he's in Qiyam and he go to ruku, you still in Qiyam. Then he goes to sajda and you still in Qiyam. If he comes back up before you finish, then your salat is being validated. So you have to hurry up, not hurry up, but finish your thing and then catch up to him, right? So it don't always have to be in sync. You know, you're not always going to be in sync. And I've seen this before, and it was doing prayer. All right, somebody had a question.
I got a question because I notice a lot of times when you do pray behind certain people or in certain groups, they do pray really fast. And it's like I always recite the Fatiha in my head with the Imam, but sometimes and then when you're going down into Jude when we're saying when we're going down, they come up so the movements are so fast that like I feel like when the way I'm saying it, I feel like am I talking too slow? So how does that go up? Because like do you lose like is you if they're rushing and you're trying to catch up with them, do that diminish your reward because you're trying to keep up? You know what I'm saying? Like
No,
you
it's all by intention. You won't have anything to do with that. So, like, if you, for instance, if you're praying how somebody's praying like that, you try to hold on to your school, but sometimes you just might have to go with the flow sometimes because to keep the ease and the harmony, right? And then you ask Allah to forgive you. You know. So, say for instance, somebody's praying in unison, they all together, they moving fast, and you trying to complete something, and then now in your school, the Shafi'i school, I'm considering you all Shafi'i if you learn it from me, but some of y'all might be spies. I don't know. I'm just joking. Um, if it becomes too overburdened where it distracts your salah or it might lead you to fall behind too far, just go with them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows your intention. So in that case, that wouldn't be on you.
okay. But in the future, can I not just pray with them? Because sometimes I know like I'll be on like these little group things and we'll all pray together. I'll just pray by myself because I don't like feeling rushed. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like you know how they be going so fast, feel like a robot. Like I don't
No, but
like that.
you still get the reward of praying in the congregation. So you want to get that reward more than just praying by yourself. Even with those,
Okay.
you definitely because you still want to keep the idea of unity with the Muslims even amongst differences. Especially
Okay.
with an issue like prayer. So there are other things that as we always discuss, it won't be unity because there are issues that we just can't unite on if people like matters of belief. All right. So, any questions on that?
No.
Okay. If one is the imam or praying alone, it is mustahab in the first and second rak'ah only to recite one complete surah, even if it be short after al-Fatiha. All right. It is mustahab to recite the Quran in a tartil, distinct and pleasant way, observing the rules of tajweed, and to reflect upon its meanings and the lessons. One recites a longer surah in the first rakat than in the second. Wait, I think I missed something up here that I meant to mention. Okay, so the ta'awud, when you say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, you say it in the first rakat, and it's mustahab that you could say it in other rakats, but you should say it. You definitely have to. If you say it, it should be in the first rakat, and you could say it in the other ones as well. But it's the emphasis on the first rakat. The first rakat. The rules of tajweed. Everybody know what tartil is?
Is that when you like sing
Yeah.
it in like a melodious way?
Say it again.
Is that like when you see, like, I guess the best way I could describe it is like sing it, or like you are melodious with it,
Yeah,
and sing it in a pleasant way, not
melodic.
just
Yeah,
type, not just say it, speak it.
yeah, melodic, rhythmic, and slow. Not like too slow, but just like, with a rhythm to it. A'udhu billahi. Well, that's not Quran. Bismillah. I really don't want to do it. My voice is horrible. Some people was clowning me before because I have a monotone kind of voice when reciting Quran. But when you hear the Quran recited and how beautiful it sounds, you should try to emulate that. Of course, keeping the rules of tajweed, tashdid, the putting the emphasis. So no matter how you're reciting and at what level and whatever you're extending here and there, make sure that it's a beautiful sound. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Zuni al Quran bi sautik. He said, beautify the Quran with your voices. All right. So then here after that, the takbir and all of that is done in the qiyam. Then the next arkan, or the pillar of the salat, is the one to make ruku, bowing from the waist. And so, you bend over from your waist and make your back straight. And so the best way is to raise one hand. So after you finish reciting a Fatiha and a complete surah, then you will raise your hands, Allahu Akbar. And then you start going down. Or, you start going down. And then it says it is mustahab to prolong the words of takbir until one reaches the posture. So you recite a surah, and then if you're by yourself, before you go to ruku, you say Allahu Akbar, right? And then you make sure you're in ruku. I was going to say wudu, but that too, you have to be in wudu to pray, right? And so you go down, making your ruku, trying to straighten your back, putting your hands on your knees and with your fingers spread out. And then you say there, Subhana Rabbil Azim, Subhana Rabbil Azim, Subhana Rabbil Azim. And then you come back up and you do what's called i'tidal, making sure you come up straight, standing up. And then when you come from ruku, you stand up and you raise your hands, and on the way up, if you by yourself, you would say Sami Allahu liman hamida, and then Rabbana wa lakal ham when you're standing upright. And so, of course, if you're behind the imam, he would do it. He would be rising up, while he's rising, Sami Allahu liman hamida, and you saying it as well, silent, and then Rabbana wa lakal ham, and at that point, you should be standing straight up, ready to go into the next movement. Okay. Is the question?
Yes. So when you're saying Sami Allahu liman hamida, like by yourself, is that said out loud, or is that said in like the low whisper?
Yeah, low whisper. I mean, if you a woman praying by yourself, you can say it in a reasonable voice. But if you were in a congregation with like men, then you would say it silently, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. Or if you with
same with the Rabbana lakul hamd.
Huh?
And that's the same with the Rabbana lakul hamd.
Yeah. So if you're praying by yourself, you'll be saying both of them in a loud voice or a moderate voice.
Okay.
But if you're praying behind men, then you would be silent.
Okay.
Okay.
Shukran.
And so i'tidal, as you see, you got this highlighted in ruku. These are the things that you have to do. All right. And so these other parts of sunnah and mustahab, and but the i'tidal, straightening up, and before you go, that you're standing straight up before you move to the next movement. Then one makes sajda. See, he has sajda in bold. And the best way is to say Allahu Akbar. So you come up, Sami Allahu liman hamida, Rabbana wa lakal hamd. And in the Shafi'i school, you raise your hands after every movement. All right. So then you would go Allahu Akbar. Then you will go down with your knees down first, then the hands. And if that's difficult, then you put your hands down first, and then your knees, your forehead and nose on the ground, and keeping the hands under your shoulders. So when you're down, They right below your shoulders, your fingers together, extended towards the Qibla, and the hands uncovered. So, in the salat, I guess this means for women too, you don't pray with the gloves on. For men to maintain a one span gap, and I think here he meant a one hand span gap between the two knees and the 2 feet, whilst women keep them together. So when you're down in sajda and you're down, for women, you put your feet together, and for men, you will have your feet just a little bit apart, but not more than one span of a hand, like a hand span. All right. Then for men to keep the stomach away from the thighs, so you're not really crunched over, like your stomach is not touching your thighs. Forearms from the side, so your elbows are out, and women keep them together. And then Subhana Rabbil A'la, Subhana Rabbil A'la, Subhana Rabbil A'la. And it's also recommended to say, if you get time, if you by yourself, you can make dua, and because that's the best time to make sajda. To make dua is in sajda. But if you're following an imam, in the Shafi'i school, you can't fall behind more than 2 units, right? So if you pray out somebody, then maybe it's not a good idea to, make dua in sajda. Just do the Subhana Rabbil A'la, Subhana Rabbil A'la, Subhana Rabbil A'la. And then, sometimes you pray behind somebody, they might be a little longer. Then if you have time, then you can recite some dua, Allahumma kfirli, or anything like that. Right. And so then one raises their head and sits before prostrating. Before prostrating the second time, so you come back up and then you say Allahu Akbar. Right? Allahu Akbar. And as one raises the head to sit, and this is called the iftirash. So iftirash is when you come between the 2 sajdas. When you come up the first sajda, then you sit up. Then you sit on your left foot on its side, like you would mostly, like you would do it in the final sitting. In between the 2 sajdas, you sit on your left foot, and you keep your right foot of the toes, like the toes pointed up, and your right foot is up. I can't really demonstrate it physically because physically I'm messed up, but you know what I'm talking about though, right? When you pray and you have your feet up straight and your toes are pointed towards the Qibla, and you sitting on your left foot. That's called iftirash. That's between the 2 sajdas. And then during that time, you place your hands on your thighs near your knees, your fingers extended and held together. And here in between the 2 sajdas, this is a recommended thing to say, but it's not obligatory. Sometimes you might see people doing this. And I've seen before, this was early on, I used to see a brother make the takbir with his hands in between these 2 sajdas, So I don't know what school that's from. And I never even bothered to check it out. I just remember seeing it, right? Okay, then one prostrates again, just as they did before. And then they go down, say Subhana Rabbil A'la, Subhana Rabbil A'la, Subhana Rabbil A'la. And then once they raise their head, and then they prolong. So when you're down in the second sajda, Subhana Rabbil A'la, Subhana Rabbil A'la, Subhana Rabbil A'la. And then when you get back up, on your way up, during the time until you're standing upright, you prolong the takbir. So you Allahu Akbar. All right. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
And again,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. All right. So now somebody read this part here. Anybody volunteer?
What part?
Right here where it says it is Sunnah.
Oh, okay. Bismillah. It is Sunnah here and in each rakat that is not followed by the tashahhud to briefly
Tashahhud.
tashahhud to briefly rest in the iftirash style of sitting before rising. Then one rises supported by both hands, palms down, and prolonging the takbir until standing. This is called Jilsat al-Istirahah, and it's not done after Sajda al-Tilawa.
Tilawa.
Then one
Okay.
to
So here, basically, after the first and third rakat, right? So when you're getting up from the first rakat and you go and do it to your second, this is when you do iftirash. So Allah, you go down, Sami Allahu liman hamida rabbana wa lakal hamd. You go down to Sajda, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. You rest here for a second. This is iftirash, right? No, that's when you're sitting up. Then you go down again to Sajda, Allahu Akbar. Then right here is iftirash. So you stop here you see people pause here, and then istirah means to settle, like, rest for a minute, and then you get up and then you start the second rakat, and then you do the same thing before you get up from the third rakat going to the fourth rakat. And if it's and so for for Maghrib, it would just be in the first one, and in Fajr, you won't have to do it. All right, so you all have seen people where they do this pause, and some people might get straight up. Is everybody clear with me on?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm taking
Yes.
my notes and I'm on mute. But yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so this is in the Shafi'i school, and so sometimes on the Hanafi school, and I think this Sister Zakaria, these might be the people that you're praying behind, where they kind of get right up. And the Hanafi school, I'm kind of amazed with it because they get up without using their hands. Have you ever seen people do that?
Yeah, I've seen both of what you're talking about, Imam.
Yeah, that's amazing to me. I could never do that. I don't know, but and
I did it with fail.
and I see the Hanafis, they like pray in unison, especially during Taraweeh prayer. I went to one time. They did 20 rakats, and it was almost like it was rehearsed. Like they all moved in unison at the same time. They was in sync. Like, man, this is some type of performance. Yeah. So istiraha, when you pause before you get up. All right, and it's not done after Sajda al-Tilawa. Anybody know what Sajda Tilawa is?
No.
Sajda Tilawa is when those 14 places in the Quran where you come to a place where you make sajda at certain ayats, and you make the sajda after you read the ayat.
Yeah.
That's Sajda Tilawa. So in that, say if you're reading the Quran, whether not in salat, if you come across an ayat in Sajda Tilawa in the salat, and you might see the imam go down. And so if he goes down, then he doesn't do istirah, he gets right back up. So that's something you should know. So if you don't know, and I remember one time there was a brother, he came, listen, I was with the Wahhabis, he was like, man, this brother, man, I don't know what kind of salat he was doing. Man, he went down to Sajda, then he got right up. But the brother didn't know that he was doing Sajda Tilawa, right? And so he was just ready to condemn him for praying wrong, because, in that movement, one wrong move and, you're off the minhaj. And so now I said, no, man, he must have recited Sajda Tilawa. So if you do that in the prayer, or you follow behind the imam and they just go down, then you know that they come to an ayat where you have to make sajda. And if you praying by yourself, is the same thing. But most of us, how many of you ever come across someone who's praying and they're reciting the ayat where they have to make sajda?
I've participated in prayer that way, especially during when we play the Taraweeh prayer. We do it quite often.
Yeah.
If nobody notices.
Yeah, it's not that often that you'll come across it, maybe during Taraweeh, but you know what to do, what the ruling is in the Shafi'i school, at least when you come across it. And then after that, that's one rakat, then you stand and perform the second rakat, and it's just like the first, except for the initial intention. So the takbiratul ihram and dua iftitah, right? So you don't have to do the takbir to ihram, but in the Shafi'i school, after each movement, you're saying Allahu Akbar and you're raising your hands. And so in the Hanafi school, they do the first takbir, which is obligation, and all across the schools, and they never raise their hands afterwards. Nor do they say the takbir aloud. And I think that's in the Maliki school as well. I'm not sure. So it's good to know all of these things when you see these different variations, especially if you're in a congregational prayer. Like you might go down and somebody says, the imam says Allahu Akbar, and you don't hear nobody else say nothing, then somebody out loud saying Allahu Akbar, right? All of these are legit because they're based on the rulings of the schools, right? And the rulings of the school doesn't mean they're not based on hadith, right? And that's one of the things with this anti-madhab thing. One thing they try to say is that these are the opinions of the imam. And real quick, not to go out, any of you ever read the Prophet's Prayer Prescribed by Nasiruddin al-Albani?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
No.
Okay. Well, I mean, you could just use as a reference, but his approach was basically, and why he got reprimanded, so he tried to consolidate all of the schools, and as if they were not praying correctly according to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and put it all in one package and say, like, this is the most correct way, because his understanding that you determine worship by the most authentic hadith, and that's not how fiqh is established. That's not how fiqh is established. Fiqh is established by knowing all of the principles or all of the hadith connected to one. And even if it's a hadith that's, that might be weak or not as strong as one, it doesn't discount the hadith, especially in these areas like this, right? Like, for instance, the hadith where we mentioned when you do the opening prayer, Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika wa tabaraka asmuka, that hadith is a little weaker than the one that says, wajahtu wajhi fatiri samawati wal ard, right? But that has no bearing either way, because and we already mentioned this before, a weak hadith doesn't necessarily mean the Prophet didn't say it. It just means that they had no way of verifying it at the same level that one that could be stringently verified, right? And so in matters of like this, that has no bearing either way, that's not wajib or something like that, then you can follow the hadith. And of course, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi'i, they knew these were masters of hadith. And so now someone comes 1,000 years later and saying that that's not correct, this is the correct way. And this is just one of the many problems with that approach, because they try to give you the impression that these scholars didn't know certain things, so. And so if you didn't read the book, alhamdulillah, but as a researcher, you might want to read the book, and then knowing how Islam was preserved through the schools and stuff like that, it make you appreciate following madhabs even more. Okay.
Can you repeat the name of the book, please, inshallah?
No, I will not, because you're going to try to go read it, then you're going to turn into a robot. Psych, I'm just joking. It's called The Prophet's Prayer Prescribed by Sheikh Nasiruddin al-Albani. And so, yes, that was you, right, Sister Aziza, that asked that?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I know you in the area too, where you're around these kind of people. So it'd be good to know as a student and a researcher, an observer, to read some of these things and just be like, man, this stuff is absurd, And unfortunately, I had to I never really read the book, but when I was reading some of the stuff, I thought that was it, until I got with teachers, but I had already learned my salat completely before I even read the book, because I think it came out in like 94, so. And then when I learned my salat, I knew that I had learned it according to the Shafi'i school. All right, so if one salat exceeds 2 rakats, one sits in iftirash after the first 2 rakats and recites the tashahhud and the salat upon the Prophet, but not upon his family. All right. And so that's so basically saying here, iftirash is when you're sitting on your left foot and your right foot is towards the qibla, and that's done after 2 rakats. Basically, when you do recite the first tashahhud, and then in Maghrib and Isha, excuse me. So after 2 rakats, you would sit in iftirash if it's a 4 rakat salat, right? So the first 2 you sit in iftirash, which is to sit on your left foot and your right foot is pointing towards the qibla. But then if it's in the 4th rakat of Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha, there's another sitting that he's going to come to. All right. All right. And then when you do that, then you're doing the tashahhud, but not the complete tashahhud. Attahiyatu lillahi wa salawatu wa tayyibatu. Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabiyyu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi salihin. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. That's when you're doing a 2 rakat of 2 rakats of a 4 rakat prayer. But if it's in Fajr or Maghrib, then that's your final sitting. And so then you would do the other part of the tashahhud. Right? Is that clear?
I got a question
Go ahead.
for the Maghrib. So Maghrib is three rakat.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that in the second rakat we do the atayatu, and then in the third rakat we do the atayatu, and then the in addition to the Ibrahim.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Oh, okay. I maybe I heard it wrong.
You need
Listen,
some more sugar, but don't get no more sugar because we get ready to end. If you get some more sugar, you go.
That's
okay.
what I thought too, Ukti Zakaria. I thought I understood it the way you understood it.
Okay, see, thanks, sis. You got my back. He got me thinking I'm over here tripping. I know I'm a little slow today.
No, yeah, I said, I forgot what I said now, but let me say.
So I guess you're referencing if it's a 3 rakat, then we only do the partial rakat. That's what you meant by that's your final time doing it.
Yeah, so in the
partial one, because in the last one we're going to do a whole one.
Yeah, in Maghrib, the 3rd rakat is your final rakat. So then you're going to do the tashahhud, the first part and the second part in Maghrib. And Fajr, you're going to do the tashahhud, the first and second part, because in Fajr is 2 rakats. The second rakat is your final rakat, right? And in Dhuhr, Asr, and Maghrib, the first 2, you're going to do the iftirash, and we're just saying the first tashahhud, and then in the 4th rakat of each of those, you're going to do the complete tashahhud. I don't know if that explained it better or not. But y'all already know I'm kind of speaking to the choir.
Yeah, I'm good. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding correctly because it was funny because we had a sister. We used to have like this little sister study group with Sister Isla. And that was for the first time. That's what she said. I didn't know that you had to recite both tashahhuds in the last rakat, because I would do the first part in the second salah and then the last part, and then she had said that to me. I didn't know that part of it.
Okay, mashallah. Okay. All right, so then here it says, when you're standing, one raises the hand to show the level, which one does here, but not after the rising from the first and third rakat. So here, as we mentioned, you do hand movements. You do the takbir in every movement in the Shafi'i school, but when you're getting up from the first and third rakat, you don't do it. So when you're getting up from the first rakat, you'll see people just put their hands on their chest, on their stomach, and then the third rakat, right? So this is a position in the Shafi'i school. And Wahhabis do this too. So because they, it just so happens that the hadith is sahih. So that's the reason why they do it, not because they follow Imam Shafi, but Imam Shafi knew the hadith was sahih thousands of years ago. So, it then goes on to perform the remainder of the salat as one did in the second rakat, except the one recites al-Fatiha to oneself and does not recite a surah after it. So the first 2 rakats, you recite al-Fatiha out loud, If it's an audible salat. If it's a non-audible salat, then you don't recite out loud none. The first 2 rakats you recite a surah, preferably the longer ones before the shorter ones. So in the Shafi'i school, in your first rakat, the surah you're gonna recite should be longer than the one in the second rakat, and in the last 2 you don't recite any surahs, just al-Fatiha. Okay, and one sits at the end of one salat for the last tashahhud in the tawarak style of sitting. And so tawarak, you might also see this is called qada, the final sitting. So the final sitting is going to be at the end of your Fajr prayer, the second rakat, the end of Maghrib, the third rakat, and Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha in the fourth rakat, right? And the sitting is, if you can do it, that you sit on your left posterior or your left buttock or backside, and your back, instead of sitting on your left foot, which is iftirash, you sit on your backside, and your left foot is like tucked under, and then your right foot is still the same. All right. So when you're in the final sitting, and that's when that's how you try to sit if you can. It's been difficult for me, and I actually might have to start getting a chair so I can really qualify for actual sitting, because sometimes when I pray, I can't really get my knees to bend all the way back while I'm sitting on my left foot or my left posterior. So, and sitting is one of the obligations of it. And so in the 2 tashahhuds, the left hand rests on the left thigh near the knee, and his fingers extended and held together. So you, on your left hand, your hand is on your thigh close to your knee, fingers together. The right hand is similarly placed, but it's held close with his thumb touching the side of the index finger. I don't know if you can see that. So your thumb is on the side of the index finger, which alone is left extended. And then when you say the shahada, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and that's when you point your finger out, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, right? And then other schools, in the Maliki school, they make a circle like this, and they will move the finger around like that, and so they all have their proofs. But in the Shafi'i school, and I think in the Hanbali school, you stick your finger out right at the beginning that you start. Attahiyatu lillahi wa salawatu wa tayyibatu. So all of these little intricacies is just showing the vastness and the variety in performing the salat, and not everyone prays it the same way. And all of these issues are legit. All right. And so this is the last section. In closing the salat is when you're making the taslim, and that is to say assalamu alaikum, the final salam. The best way is to say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, turn the head to the right to show the right cheek to those behind. So, you turn your head all the way, and there's also a narration where you turn your body kind of too. So somebody behind you will see your right cheek. And then you do the same thing on the left. And of course, we know in the Shafi'i school, in the Shafi'i school, the minimum part is to just turn to your right and say assalamu alaikum, right? But then the regular method is assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. And then the Malikis, one of their practices that they just do to the right, assalamu alaikum, and you hear that. So, and in that instance, you can still follow your school while you're praying behind a Maliki, So if you're praying behind a Maliki and they say assalamu alaikum, you can do the minimum, say assalamu alaikum, or you can say assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. No harm, no foul. All right. If somebody had a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, after we do, so in the bottom it says we say ilah, in the tashahhud. Is that what that mean when we say la ilaha? Because I think we talked about this last time. You told me we was going to get to it, but when I mentioned to you that not this Ramadan, but the Ramadan before, Imam Ami had an Asr reflection, and he mentioned that before we close out do the taslim, that we should restate the tashahhud, like la ilaha illallah, la ilaha Muhammad Rasulullah, and then do the taslim. He said that's what it is in the Shafi'i school, but it's not
Yeah.
in the book. I just wanted to make sure because that wasn't mentioned.
No, that's and not that I'm mentioning in this book, but yeah, that's something you could do as well. That's also a position in the Shafi'i school. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's just read this last section because it's easy, and then we'll be finished with it. So after you make the taslim, it is mustahab to make dhikr and dua silently after salat. Imam Shafi'i mentioned in Al one of his books, I prefer that the imam and the follower make dhikr after the salam and do so silently, unless the imam wants to be learned from, in which case he says the dhikr out loud until he believes that the congregation has learned from him, after which he will say it silently. The imam turns for dhikr and dua so that his right side is towards the jama'ah and his left side is towards the qibla. He leaves his place as soon as he finishes. If there are no women, in which case he waits for them to leave first. It is mustahab for the followers to remain seated until the imam stands. And so this is an important issue real quick about, making dhikr in congregation. So there's a difference of opinion about doing it out loud or doing it silently. And so Imam Shafi'i was of the view that he would prefer them to do it silently after the salat, but it's also permissible to do dhikr out loud in a group. So you hear some of these people, they say that this is bid'ah, right? And so this is because they don't understand fiqh and they don't know all of the stuff related to it. And so there's a few hadith, but we don't want to mention them. But there was one by, I think it was Ibn Abbas. He said one time that he came to the prayer and he knew the prayer was over because he heard the takbir. So what does that mean? Anybody? If he heard the takbir, that means what?
I'm sorry, say it again.
I said there's a narration, I think it's from Ibn Abbas and one of the companions. They said they came to the masjid one time to observe the congregational salat, but they knew that the prayer was complete because they heard the takbir. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. So if they heard the takbir, what does that mean?
That's,
There was
is
some
that not,
line now.
Huh?
that's the beginning, right?
No, the takbir, when you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. That's the
The
yeah,
takbir. Oh,
takbir is
okay.
saying Allahu
There is
Akbar.
a moment of thicker. Okay, yeah, I got you.
He heard them saying it out loud and in the group. So it can't be bid'ah because during the time Ibn Abbas, they were doing it. And then there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said the angels surround the gatherings of dhikr. And so here Imam Shafi'i said that he would prefer to do it silently, but it all could be done in the congregation two ways. Either everyone is allowed or the imam is saying the dua and then the people behind him is saying silently. And that's like the preferred view of Imam Shafi'i. But none of these are bid'ah like people say because they don't understand the concept of bid'ah. That's a whole nother class in itself, but I just wanted to relate that. And so then in the Shafi'i school, the imam would turn to his right. He would say the dua, whether loud or together or silent. And then normally the people should wait until the imam leaves, and the imam will wait with their sisters, wait till they leave. And then when the imam moves from his spot, then the person following leaves from their spot. And so this is all mustahab. So if a person has to go, and the imam didn't leave yet, it's no harm. It's just better to allow the imam to leave first. All right. And so next week we'll continue and go back to the text, and they start coming some of the conditions of the degrees of making intentions. And so now we know that the making intention is an obligation for the salat. Then there's levels to it, and then he's going to go into levels of the takbirat, how to do it, what invalidates it. And so those are going to be the next two sections we cover, inshallah ta'ala. So any questions before we conclude?
No, I don't have any.
Everybody
I
else?
got one question. Do you know where I can find that hadith you just mentioned about them hearing the thickering?
I don't know offhand. I could try to find it though.
Okay. I just wanted to put it in my notes. You know how I am about my notes.
Okay. All right, but there is a section in Riyadh al-Salihin about the virtues of dhikr, and in that section it talks about how the angels surround the groups of dhikr, you know. And so a group of dhikr means people doing dhikr in a group. Where other people say that it's a bid'ah, right? And when they mean bid'ah, they mean like you're opposing the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and on your way to hell. Because you're doing something astray. And that's not even the meaning of bid'ah, actually, but that's another story for another time. Inshallah, we're in there. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka anta samiul alim. Rabbana la tuzigh qulubana ba'da idh hadaytana wa hab lana min ladunka rahma innaka anta wahhab. ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير سبحان ربك رب العزة أما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa
Wa alaikum assalam wa
rahmatullah.
rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum
Uh,
salam.
so,